here's the secret they don't tell you, is a lot of those digital billboards they're throwing in for free. So if you have enough static billboards, they'll sweeten the pie. Now, I don't think they're doing that for everyone, right?
Yeah.
I think if you're just like, hey, I want one digital billboard, they'll sell it to you at full price. But if you have a bunch of static ones, so now when they call, they're like, well, I could sell you these digital ones. Well, absolutely not. Because you're giving them away for free to everybody else. You used to give them away for free to me. Right. But no, it's unfortunate. I definitely see where we're going to get away from static billboards. In the next 20 years, I'd be shocked if we still had those. I mean, I think they're slowly rolling them out as quickly. Well, I say slowly rolling them out, but as quickly as possible. Mm-hmm. Welcome to Above the Legal Limit. I'm your host, Justin Chopin, business owner, lawyer, dad, world's best husband, traveler, and adventure seeker. On this podcast, we mix business with pleasure. We'll dive into growth strategies, entrepreneurial adventures, the business of law, and prove that business isn't boring. So let's get ready because we are going above the legal limit. I have a very special guest here today, Elaine Kimbrell. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Sure. Thanks, Justin. So my name is Elaine Kimbrell. I am the owner of Ware Immigration. We are a full-service immigration law firm located in Metairie, Louisiana, but we have clients all over the country and all over the world. Immigration is a federal practice area, so we have the good fortune of being able to represent people all across the country.
So I always love this. Elaine and I have known each other for many years. And everybody knows I do personal injury or I do insurance work. But there are other fields of the law that I know absolutely nothing about. Not even like I can't even fake it, right? So if you're like, oh, well, I was arrested, I'm like, oh man, well that's like a bigger crime, But like you can fake some areas of the law. This is one I know nothing about. I can't fake it. Somebody asked me the other day, do you know any immigration lawyers? Of course I do. And then they started talking to me about it. I was like, whoa. I don't know anything about what you're saying. None of those words make sense. So I'm always fascinated when I see somebody who, is a practicing licensed attorney, a law firm owner, and their practice is complete polar opposites to what I do. But thanks for coming on. So I want to hear more about this because I think this is fascinating.
Sure. Yeah. So I think immigration is a very misunderstood area of the law. I think people seize on what they see on the news or what's happening at the border and sort of the more controversial aspects of it. But my primary focus within the field is sort of like a niche area is on bringing professionals to the United States to work mostly at colleges and universities. So we do lots of professors, researchers, physicians, and I think that's an area of immigration that's not really talked about. People don't really think of that when they think of immigration. I mean, our firm certainly does, green cards for people who want to marry their girlfriend from Canada, or, we do deportation defense, but the things that are in the news that are sort of our largest volume of practice are things that I think most people don't even realize exists. But it's a lot of fun. It's very rewarding, and I really enjoy it.
I think it's fascinating. So I think you might have helped a really good friend of mine, too, who I guess had a green card. He's in IT, and so they're like a dear family friend, and he's now an American citizen, right? So he got like his little flag. He passed the test, and so that's and it's funny because we sort of take it for granted, especially being like Americans, right? Americans, we're only patriotic at like the beginning of a baseball game,
right?
And so, but he's from like Belgium, and so we kind of laugh a little bit. He's like, you guys are the only country that sings your national anthem before you run a 5K.
Yeah, before a football game. They don't do that in other places.
In Europe, we just run the 5K. And I'm like, oh, well,
Yeah, it's true.
But yeah, so I think you had helped him out, and so he's a proud citizen. But you're right. When you talk about immigration, you on the news, all you see, what you really see is Texas, right? You see Texas, you see Miami. No one's talking about like really highly skilled individuals immigrating to the country. What I guess what country do you see most of that immigration flowing from?
We see most people from India and China. So
Okay.
a lot of them first come as international students on some sort of exchange program. And then they end up wanting to stay, finding an employer that wants to sponsor them. But most of them are from India and China. But unfortunately, the way our system is set up, we have quotas on the number of people that can get green cards every year in certain categories and from certain countries. So people from India and China face decades-long backlogs before they can
Really?
get green cards. Yes, so they have to remain sort of employed with their employer sponsor, and they will wait years and years to become permanent residents first, and then hopefully eventually U.S. citizens. So
what's
it's
the
crazy.
country? Yeah, what country would be the shortest wait?
So they call them all chargeability. So if you're not from India, China, Mexico, or the Philippines, then you will have a shorter wait to get your residency. Basically, the way that the categories are laid out, there's 140,000 visas available every year, and there's different preference categories, and no one country's citizens can have more than 7% of the allotment in each category. So it creates these like crazy backlogs.
That's fascinating.
And so
Who comes up with that?
I don't know, Congress.
Some federal
Yeah.
reg somewhere deeply
Yeah.
buried in a.
Yeah, but we
okay.
haven't had any immigration reform since 2000, so it's long overdue. And what that looks like, that's beyond me, but it's definitely a challenge, and I know creates a lot of hardship for our Indian and Chinese clients.
I bet. And so another thing that I think is interesting is New Orleans, where we're located, we don't have a lot of immigration to New Orleans, right? I mean, so I would imagine your practice really is nationwide.
It
right?
is,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, we represent a lot of institutions of higher education, so most like colleges and universities who want to bring in people, anything from accountants to professors to very highly trained and skilled researchers that are doing cutting edge work that, is for things I don't really even understand,
Right.
but
You just know
they're at the
it's
top of their
important.
field. They're published, they present, they're very accomplished. So most of our clients are university clients.
Okay,
Yeah.
interesting. But not strictly Louisiana institutions, right? Like could be from anywhere.
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, we have a pretty large client base in California among their higher ed institutions, and then definitely a lot in the Gulf South, Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana.
Okay.
Yeah. The former owner really developed a niche in working with universities and servicing their immigration needs, and so he's sort of grown the reputation of the firm among higher ed, and so that's how we ended up getting a lot of these institutions as clients.
So you touched on something that is near to my heart, obviously, is the former owner, and that you are now the owner.
Correct.
When did that happen?
January of 2023,
Okay, so
I
it's been
became
a
the
year.
sole owner of the firm, yes. David Ware is our firm founder, and he owned the firm for about 40 years, and then he decided he wanted to take a step back. He is retired, but serving in an of-counsel role, but I'm the sole owner of the firm.
Great.
As of January last year. Yeah.
You guys used to have the billboard in the airport, right? Do you still
We
have that?
did. We
I
did
love that
not.
billboard. Y'all should bring that back.
I know, but when they moved to the new
yeah.
airport, the way that they have the ads is that they rotate, they're digital.
Yes.
And so you don't have that static ad that everyone sees all the time as they're trying to, go through security at MSY. And the rates went up.
Yeah, the rates go up, and you
know.
get 12 seconds.
Right,
That's
less
how,
visibility.
So that was my deal. When we had the bigger billboards, is that we'll put you on the digital, and I was like, no. I mean, we had one or a few of them, I guess. And here's the secret they don't tell you is a lot of those digital billboards they're throwing in for free. So if you have enough static billboards, they'll sweeten the pie.
I see.
Now I don't think they're doing that for everyone, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I think if you're just like, hey, I want one digital billboard, they'll sell it to you at full price. But if you have a bunch of static ones, so now when they call, they're like, well, I could sell you these digital ones. But absolutely not. Because you're giving them away for free to everybody else. You used to give them away for free to me.
Right.
But no, it's unfortunate. I definitely see where we're going to get away from static billboards. You know, in the next 20 years, I'd be shocked if we still
For
had
sure.
those. I mean, I think they're slowly rolling them out as quickly. Well, I say slowly rolling them out, but as quickly as possible, because I'm sure they've, what is it, every 12 seconds. So they've, I don't know the math on that, 10 times or 8 times the number of subscribers that they, would have had with a static billboard,
Yeah.
right? No, my math is no good on that. 5 times.
I don't know. Ask me about the law, not
We'll
about
have to
math.
edit that. We'll have to edit out my bad math. So how has your role changed now? So now that you're the owner, are you fully in operations? Do you still get to practice as much as you did before?
I still do more practice probably than I should, but I've been trying to working on the business instead of
Right.
in the business. But when I've been with the firm for 17 years,
Right.
and so clients, they want to see me, they want to hear it from me. And so even though I'm trying to get associates to do some of the work, it's always the pull back to actually work on the actual cases. Which is a challenge, but I have a really great team, and so they're definitely there to support me through that. But it's a slow march towards more operations than to getting out of the day-to-day practice. But it's definitely a goal.
It's, it was hard for me to do that. What I found was when I tried doing both, I thought both suffered, right? And so the operations were suffering because I was bogged down in the litigation. The litigation suffered because I was bogged down in operations. And so it was actually my CPA who said, well, I mean, I said, well, I'm trying to decide, do I hire another lawyer? Do I hire, someone, a bookkeeper or operations director? And it was, this was 3 years ago. He said, well, it depends, Justin. What do you want to do? Do you want to work in the business? You want to work on the business? He's like, personally, I'd prefer to work on the business than, I'd rather oversee my CPA firm than to be sitting here crunching numbers, on your books. And that kind of resonated with me at the time. This is years ago now, but that was the first time I had heard that and thought about that in that way. And so, we made that transition. I guess, I don't know how long it's been, but I would say, we were marching that way slowly right before COVID, and then after COVID, as I think we took on another lawyer, and then we made it like super official about a couple of years ago. But it's weird, and so now I still am in every case. I still talk to every lawyer about the case. We're still brainstorming, but but that's sort of that's where my role is, and it's a little nerve-wracking that you think everyone's going to leave, and then I'm like, and I have to go back and start doing depositions and responding to discovery. I'm like getting rusty. And I'm like, oh God, what am I going to do? So
yeah, but you really just can't do both.
You really can't. It's too much. And then we hired a director. So we have a director of operations, and so I was talking with someone yesterday actually, and they're like, "What do you do?" And I'm like, oh, "Well, I don't really know. I'm not here to answer questions about that. Let's, I don't know what I do." I was like, "Well, I do operations." He said, "Well, I thought you had an operations." I was like, well, yes, but it's almost like that scene from Office Space, right? Like, I take the information from the engineers. I'm a people person, so I'm really nowhere.
But you're the visionary.
That's it. That's it. I free up my time so I can sit here and think about the next project.
Yes,
I'm
I had
a
one
professional
business.
thinker.
I had one business owner tell me that if her team saw her just staring out the window, like thinking about things, then she was doing her job.
If my team saw me staring out the window, their instruction should be like, "You need to come shake me."
Right, I know.
You've lost me. I need to come back.
Yeah, same. If I'm not typing manically at my computer, then
Exactly.
something's gone wrong. But I think immigration, like personal injury, is a high volume practice. So, you can't keep up with that same pace of volume as an owner that and run the business at the same time. And so that's what we've definitely seen with immigration. But we've trained up a lot of people to handle the volume of work. And
how many lawyers do you have?
We have 8 lawyers,
Okay.
And a team. Our total team is 37 people.
Wow.
And I have employees all across the country. So we have 2 physical offices and only, but I have people in 5 different states. So, yeah.
Where's your other office?
In Seattle.
I love Seattle. I did not know this.
Yeah. So our former owner kind of wanted to shift his life more towards the West Coast.
No kidding. Yeah.
About 10 years ago, and so
Sorry, New Orleans.
Yeah. So we had a lot of clients up in the Pacific Northwest anyway, so it sort of made sense. But we have 4 full-time staff members up there.
Do you go up there?
I've been up there several times. Not recently, but yeah.
Well, if you're looking for a friend, a
Okay.
travel buddy,
Okay. I'll let you know.
So I'm obsessed with Seattle. We went. I went in 2018 to go climb Mount Baker, and so I was solo, so I didn't have anybody with me, and so I just sat there with my AirPods and reading nonsense, and could not have been happier. Right?
Yeah.
And my wife is home with the kids who had, I don't even know, untold illnesses. I mean, like strep that then turned into the stomach flu, which turned into a pink eye situation. And I was at like, I don't know, 12,000 feet, and I had like a signal, and I called home, and I was like, hey, starting at midnight, so I guess it's like 2:00 in the morning her time. I don't know why I guess the only reason she answered is because my daughter had been throwing up on her all night. And I was like, oh, I'm just a little nervous. She's like, I don't care that you're nervous. Go climb the mountain so you can come home so that I can pass this child off. I was like, okay, fair enough. Love you. Bye. But that was that first time in Seattle, and I thought it was amazing.
It is.
And we went back the next year when we did Rainier, and we just spent a few days just like eating and drinking. That's all we did. We never got to do anything else. And then I've been back a couple of times since. So I'm very obsessed with that area but I'm always there at the same time of year.
What time of year is that?
It's always July and August.
Okay, August is beautiful.
Right, and so everyone's like, "Oh, you wouldn't like it," and I was like, "Maybe. I don't know. You might be right. I've only been in July and August."
Yeah.
But, I'm pretty obsessed with getting out there.
Yeah, it's great. Great town, and if you haven't been to Portland, I also recommend that. It's like a combination trip. Yes, Brian, we did a baby moon there.
A baby moon?
Yes.
Is that with or without?
No, without. When we were
okay.
pregnant for the second, we did a baby moon to Seattle and Portland. It's a great trip.
I need to do a baby moon.
Left no calorie behind.
No, so that was shocking to me. So I grew up here, and you were raised in New Orleans to say that the only good oyster is a Gulf oyster. Like it's like embedded in your, I don't know, it's indoctrinated. You're indoctrinated to say that. And so I go to Seattle for the first time, and I don't know, I saw the oysters, and I was like, and they're like, oh, they're from this area and this area and this area. It's like, yeah, why not? I don't know. Something just told me, I was like, Justin, you should be drinking beer and eating oysters right now. You've got nothing else to do.
Go for it.
So I did it, and it was like a neuron like exploded in my brain. The second I did that, I was like, these are the best oysters I've ever had in my life. The ones in the Gulf South have this like very large, meaty, British Petroleum, quality to them, and so the food was unexpected, because I always think we do have the best food here, but I'm always shocked and excited when I go somewhere and say, oh wait, actually no, this is the best food ever.
It's a great food town.
It is a good food town.
For sure.
So you've got 8 lawyers, but you've got almost 40 staff members.
Yes.
This is always fascinating to me. So I'm a member of this sort of marketing company, and we'll talk to other law firm owners. And it's always really funny because they'll say, how many lawyers? So you and I, our firms are about the same size. And they'll say, well, how many when I started? Now we've grown a lot. We've almost quadrupled this last year, but how many lawyers do you have? And I was like, well, I have about 8 lawyers. I think we're 9 now. And they're like, how many staff members do you have? And I'm like, oh, I think we've got, we're like 10 now. And they kind of, I'm like, well, what about you? And they're like, well, we're 2 lawyers and we've got 60 staff members. And I'm always trying to like wrap my head around how that happens and what am I doing wrong? How could you possibly manage that much overhead? we talk about this a lot here. Is that we're very tightly staffed because we're plaintiffs lawyers, so we're fronting all the cash for everything, right?
Right.
So, it could be for your medical expenses, right? And this because obviously not just being a lawyer, but you're also married to a lawyer like me, and so who does this work, and so all your filings, all your experts. I had Phil Lorio asking me for buckets of cash for experts this morning on multiple cases. So in order to do that, we have to be so lean with the staff, and so we basically wait until we think someone's going to quit or have a nervous breakdown before we hire another staff member. So we're going to get one of those meters like they have out in the national forest about the fire meter, right? Like if it's rained a lot or it's very dry, we're gonna have one of those here that's like nervous breakdown or quitting,
right?
And that'll tell us whether we need to hire someone or not. So we've recently done this new thing where we did a thing, as they say now. We hired someone out of the Philippines.
Okay.
We actually hired 2 people out of the Philippines.
Okay.
And it's fascinating. So, and I know one of them actually wants to immigrate to the U.S. So I'll put you guys. Well, no, she can't. I'll tell her about you later. But she just started for us.
Okay.
And it's fascinating. They will work Central Time Zone hours.
Yeah. So are they doing like your intake?
So I have one who is strictly doing medical records requests and leave requests. Okay. So it's just I'm trying to find ways to free up bandwidth.
Yeah.
Without having to bring another role on that locally, which requires so many other things, and then you get complicated in how you're staffing, right? So. Right. Every lawyer has their own paralegal. So then you bring another paralegal, and you're like, well. Where do you fit in? It's too complex. And so I was like, well, what if we expanded this way? What if we did it was a task base, and so we have one person doing that. And then we have one full-time paralegal that just started with us who has been doing this for a long time. And is amazing so far. It's been like a month and everyone's just shocked at how wonderful this is going because we were all very skeptical at first. But I had to ask because she has another job, and she's a licensed attorney over in the Philippines. And
okay.
So when do you practice law? And she says, well, I do it in the morning. And I said, well, when would you work here? She was like, well, I would do that at night. And I was like, you are sleeping.
Right, when do you sleep?
When do you, so I asked her, when do you sleep? And she's like, oh, I sleep. And I was like, I don't believe you.
Some people just don't need that much sleep. I'm not one of them.
She works, and it's a 14-hour time difference, which is another mathematical anomaly to me. I can do a 12-hour time difference. Once you get past the 12 hours, I have no idea. I don't know which direction I should be going in.
Right.
But it's a 14-hour time difference. So she'll work from 8 a.m. here, which I guess would be 10 p.m. her time.
Okay.
Until 4 a.m. her time. Yeah.
Jeez.
But
that's intense.
But is remarkably good at her job.
Okay. And, so, I know in immigration there's a lot of folks who have outsourced sort of their kind of call centers to, South and Central America, just because a lot of the clients are Spanish speaking. And it's, it can be a challenge to find bilingual folks in the U.S. But is that a trend that you're seeing on the PI side too, that people are starting to move jobs overseas? There are the big box firms, as I call them. So there are actually 2 different categories of firms that are outsourcing all their labor. So you've got the virtual firms, which is like a post-COVID thing. Okay.
So there are firms out there they're not brick and mortar. They're 100% virtual. Okay. So maybe it's like a lawyer with a home office and all virtual staff in other countries. And so that's like an interesting emerging trend with its own host of issues. And then you have the big box firms who they move call centers and they say, well, I've got 75 people in a warehouse in Colombia, and so they have these call centers. We're sort of in the middle of those 2. I guess we're mid-sized. I don't consider us big like the other guys, but we're certainly not virtual, right? So I can't have a call center in another country because if our firm was in Seattle or New York, you might be able to get away with that, right? Because there is so much immigration to those areas.
Right.
And we're in New Orleans, right? So if you're in the Gulf South and you call a business and there is even a hint of an accent,
right,
no matter what language or what region of the country it comes from, they shut down. Like,
right.
our clients are like, oh, and I can't blame them because I'm the same way. So if I call customer service for Amazon because I have a problem, and someone answers the phone and they have a thick accent, you know, we all think the same thing. Like, oh, here we go again.
I'm at a call center. Yeah,
this is going to be the longest call, and nothing's going to get accomplished.
Right. Right.
And so, so I find for client-facing roles, I need my people here. You know, because customer service for us is paramount. And so, you know, in the defense, it's like a little bit different, right? Because it's your client. So the partner is always cultivating the relationship with you know, his or her client, much like you, right? So if your client is Stanford, you know, or whatever, you know, you're going to cultivate that relationship. Well, with us on the plaintiff side, we have so many more clients, and it's a little bit different. And so we have to shift our focus from thinking about clients to thinking of them as like customers. Right.
Yeah.
And so we're very customer focused. So I can't have somebody in a warehouse somewhere. I mean, they need to be here, and I need to like listen to what they're saying, and then come in and be like, hey, we're just, you know, customer's always right. Just
and I think in PI, you know, your clients still want to see you face to face, and they're still like wanting to come in. Versus most of my clients, I have a virtual relationship with anyway, because they're not even in physical proximity to where I am. So I mean, in COVID, even our like on our family side, you know, we have fewer and fewer in-person appointments. Most people want to communicate virtually or through WhatsApp, which has sort of been another challenge that, you know, we've started to tackle of like how are we saving these communications and all of that. So you know, it's definitely interesting, but I know there are definitely like larger firms that outsource either call centers or like parts of their immigration filings and form preparation.
I was going to say they're outsourcing all of it
to India and to other places. So it's crazy.
They're outsourcing legal work, right? So I mean, I got something the other day that's like, hey, you want us to write all your demand letters for you? And I'm thinking, what?
Right.
No, I don't want you to know.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I'll be curious to see in the next 10 years what the bar associations think about outsourcing some of this work, whether they think that that's okay or not. But for now, I don't think that anyone knows about it. But you know, it's one thing to outsource a receptionist. It's another thing when you're outsourcing the actual work that's going on. It's funny, you know, when we talk about COVID and the shift that created, you know, for law firms and how they operate. It was my first day. It was March, I guess, 18th, 2021. Was it 21?
It was 2020.
2020? It's all a blur.
Yeah,
I have no idea.
it is.
All right, March 18th, 2020. I'm sitting there. I've got my home office all outfitted. We were ready for this. And we've always been cloud-based. So it really was no big deal. Everyone took their laptops home.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't need to take their phones home. They could if they wanted. It was all app-based. But you know, I open up my laptop. My kid comes running in with a nanny. I don't even know her name. I don't know where my wife found her. It was like Facebook Marketplace, you know, or I don't know. And I was like, I can't do this. I closed my laptop. My wife was upstairs on a crawfish table in our bedroom, or a picnic table for you out of town folks. And I was like, I'm going downtown. She's like, what? You can't go downtown. I said, I'm going downtown. She was like, but there's COVID downtown. I said, I know, but it occurred to me as my son was screaming in the office, this is never going to work.
Right.
My clients don't care about this. They don't care about what's going on. Checks are coming in the mail, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I've got workers' comp clients who need to get paid every week. Mail needs to be processed. So I sent everyone home, and I came back here like it was day one, 2015, just started the law firm. I brought the mail upstairs, and it was just me for about a month. And then eventually my paralegal was like, I'm going to divorce my husband if you don't let me come downtown. So I was like, come on in. I was like, that's fine. I was like, you know, and then once that happened, we slowly came back. But what was fascinating to me was it changed the practice for everybody And it really didn't change at all. Nothing changed for us, except we used Teams. I made everyone use Teams because I was sick of what I call the micro emails, like the Roger that emails. But you know, it was a fascinating change to see it kind of play out. But at the same time, I thought what was most interesting is this sort of migrating back to brick and mortar, clients coming upstairs, you know, getting their checks. I mean, we could go remote, like we could I could have, you know, we could do direct deposits into their accounts. We could do all these things, but is that really necessary? Is it healthy? Is it what they want? And ultimately, you know, the decision on our end was, no, I don't think we need to do all these things. I think we just need to, you know, luckily we got out, you know, safe, and we didn't have any, you know, we had COVID running rampant in our office 4 times now, obviously, but we were all very lucky. But yeah, ultimately, I think, you know, for the practice of law for personal injury is the relationship with the lawyer and the client. Yeah, and that doesn't exist in a virtual scenario, right now.
Right. So, yeah, it really
but
doesn't.
In immigration, I can see where you're right. I mean, you're helping someone who's remote anyways.
Correct.
So I would imagine then this new trend has got to be a godsend for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, as long as they can reach you, then they don't necessarily care where you are. I mean, I think people are sometimes surprised when they learn that I'm in New Orleans. They don't necessarily know where I am. They see our, you know, the offices that we have listed, but they don't understand like where I am. And we have employees in every time zone. So, you know, even though everybody's sort of anchored to Central Time, they don't necessarily know where the employee is either. And our Metairie staff, I mean, you know, is still like our headquarters. Immigration is still very much a paper-based filing. Really? We have lots of mail.
Really?
So, you know, they're moving to electronic, but most things are filed, you know, through, you know, FedEx to a service center, and everything gets processed by paper. We get receipts by paper. So, you know, mail is like a very,
they were more advanced than that.
Yeah, but our employees now work, most of our Metairie employees work a hybrid schedule.
Do they?
So, yeah, but now we have all this office space that we don't necessarily need.
We just built out office space, and I was really worried that we weren't going to need it. And about 6 months after opening into it, I was really starting to panic that I maybe was jumped the gun. We didn't need it. And now I'm actually realizing we didn't take enough. I think we're going to be out of space by the end of the year. So, I can't do anything about it. It's always fun to try to negotiate with the building. They're like, well, we could always leave. And they're like, Justin, you can't leave. You've got 6 more years. You're still on your last lease term. Fine. So, well, hey, thank you, Elaine. Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it. I love hearing about your practice, not just the immigration, but your new role, or not quite so new role, as owner of the law firm. Congratulations for that. And it was great learning more about the day-to-day of your practice.
Thanks so much, Justin. It was great to be here.
Tell our listeners how they can find you.
So you can reach me by email at Elaine, ELAINE, at david-ware.com, or by calling our office at 504-830-5900.
Thanks for coming. Thank you for joining me today on Above the Legal Limit. If you enjoyed the show and you want to hear more about business and law, hit that subscribe button. If you didn't like the show, keep it to yourself. Remember, there's no limit to what we can achieve. We will see you next week. Until then, even though we're above the legal limit, let's drive safely. Cheers, everyone.